So Govee just launched their all-new Curtain Lights Pro with a whopping 960 LEDs compared to the 520 of previous generations. But with the added LED count, the curtain is no longer 4.9 feet wide like the older models. Instead, the size of the Pros are bumped up to 5.4 feet wide, which is going to cause many people to be extremely upset, which I'll get into later. Opening things up, you have the welcome and getting started information, you have 3 initial black boxes, and once those are removed, you'll find their all-new mounting track plus another narrow box. In the first package, you'll find some mounting clips if you want to do it the old way. You have a pretty good sized controller that has a single power button on it, and one of the improvements with this kit is that all the components are now IP67 water rated compared to the IP65 of previous models. And then further down you have some mounting screws. In the next box is where you'll find a beefy 24 volt 3 amp power supply that will drive the 960 individually addressable LEDs. Then you have the main event, which is the curtains. And to overcome voltage drop, they have a separate power cord that goes from the beginning of the lights to the end, essentially providing a power injection point so that this many LEDs are able to be lit up evenly with no loss in brightness. Now the Pros are going back to the first gen framework where you can buy multiple single unit kits and the software will splice them together to create a larger canvas. Compare this to having to buy specific 2 or 3 size kits of the second gen. The benefit of going back to this method is if you buy one of these Pro curtain lights and later on you want to expand, you simply buy another kit and the software will combine them into one big canvas. And the only downside to this is that each kit will need its own power supply. But on the curtain lights too, if you bought a single kit and later decided you want to upgrade to get a bigger canvas, you had to buy a completely separate kit for the size you wanted, and your single curtain was not able to be added to that. Now the only benefit of doing it this way was on the bigger size canvases, they only required one power supply. So if we're not able to have it both ways, going back to what they're doing here with the Pros, in my opinion, is absolutely the right decision. Moving on, they have a new track mounting system that's actually pretty awesome, and I'll go over these here in a bit. And finally, you have the clips that go on the bottom of the lights to help them not get tangled. Alright, so I did want to go back to why many people are going to be extremely upset with this new Pro kit. Now, I would imagine Govee sold millions of dollars worth of the original and curtain lights too, purely based on people installing 3 sections on their garage door for the holidays like I showed everyone how to do for both generations. So standard 2-car garage doors are 192 inches. And when you take the original and Generation 2, which are both 4.9 feet, and multiply that by 3, you get approximately 177 inches, which fits great. However, when you take the Pros and their wider 5.41 feet and multiply that by 3, you get 195 inches, which is going to be longer than your garage door. This really seems like a huge miss for Govee in their design, but thankfully I was able to come up with a workaround, which I'll go over here shortly. So if you're wanting to install these somewhere in your house and you had no intention of moving them, the track system they provide is perfect for that. You simply insert the white connectors into the slots like I'm doing here, and then they even have a spot for the white cord that spans from the beginning to the end. Once everything's in place, you snap the top piece on and you have a very clean end result. But if the idea of easily moving these around to different spots in your house, or you want to install 3 sets of these on your 2-car garage door, you're going to need to go a different route. The first thing you're going to need are some 2-meter long aluminum diffuser channels from Uzada, but for this install, you only care about the profiles and not the diffuser cover. Now this is going to be the same process as last year's model because the little connectors are too small for the channel. So I'll be using some locking pliers to crimp the channels in to make them smaller like I'm doing now. And you want to make it so you really have to give them a good push to get them in. Now this is the most important part of the video if you want to install 3 of these on your garage door. What you need to do is space these closer together in the profile, meaning the wire cannot be fully stretched out. You should have a little crimp in each section, and it doesn't have to be much, but when you do this for the full length, you're going to save the necessary inches to make it fit. Now I was worried that having the more narrow spacing might cause the animations and effects to look slightly off, so in order to test both ways, here I'm doing another kit where I stretch the wires out as far as I can. This way I'll be able to look at both options to see if I can notice a difference. And here, once you get to the end, you can use a pair of tin snips to cut the extra profile off. To get these mounted, use some large 3M command strips, and this will be my 3rd year in a row using this product, and they work incredibly well without doing any damage to your garage doors. So the first thing you need to do is wipe down the surface to get rid of any dust on the spot where the 3M command strips will be. And if you skip this step, the profiles will more than likely not get a good grip on the surface and they'll fall down very quickly. Now the height that you install these will depend on your garage's architecture, and I like having them as close to the top as possible, but they still need to be far enough down so that they have clearance when the doors open. And considering I have windows, the trim is what makes the most sense for where to place these. So right here, I'm going to install my first kit, and this is one that has normal spacing, which is going to be closer to that 65 inches wide where 3 wouldn't fit on this door. And once I have that up, I'll be doing another normal size spacing kit right next to it. Then on my single car garage door, this is where I'm going to put the kit that has the smaller spacing between curtains that I showed you earlier. And I'm doing it both ways because I want to be able to compare this to the normal spacing to see if they look similar or if there's a dramatic difference when it comes to the animations and effects. Moving on to the inside, and I have an outlet above where the garage door motor is. And this is pretty simple. I'm using some zip ties to secure the 2 power supplies for the 2 curtains I have on my big garage door, and I'll be plugging them into an extension cable that has 2 outlets. After that, I'll connect both controllers to the separate power supplies, and then the other end goes to the beginning of the curtain lights. I also ended up putting some small hooks on the ceiling to help get rid of some of the slack for when the doors open. Now, as far as cable management, since I installed these close enough to the top, I'm able to pretty much rest the box that gets the power inside and on the top of the garage door like you're seeing here, and then just use some cable clips to tidy up the wires. And again, make sure to wipe down the surface before sticking these on. And here at the end of the first curtains is the power injection box that again I'm just resting on the top. I then did the exact same thing for the second curtain lights. So here's what it looks like from the inside when it's closing, but you certainly can adjust the hook position on the ceiling according to your layout to adjust the slack. And then here's another angle so you can get a better idea of what's going on. Back on the outside, I'll install the pieces on the bottom that help keep things from getting tangled in the wind. And finally, from the outside, here's what it looks like when the garage door opens and closes. So let's now do some measurements. Here's one of the 2 curtain lights where I spaced them out regular distance, and sure enough, these came in right at 65 inches, which equals 195 when you times it by 3, and that would be too long to fit 3 on the door. Now here's the kit where I pushed the lights closer together in the track, and just by doing this little adjustment, it brought the length down to 59.25 inches, which multiply that by 3, you get just under 178 inches. Since we only had to get it under 192, you would 100% have enough space to do 3 of these on a standard 2-car garage door. So the first thing I wanted to do was to see if the curtain on the left with the shorter spacing looked better or worse or about the same as the normal spacing on the right. And after looking at a few different scenes, at least to me, they looked about the same. So this means if you did go with a smaller spacing to fit 3 on the one garage door, it's going to look just fine. And it's very clear to see the improvement with the higher LED count, higher FPS, which gives off much smoother animations. Now let's say you wanted to make some of these into a larger canvas. I'll go into my middle curtain, which is curtain number 2 for me, click on settings, and then width expansion. Then click the curtain or curtains you want to add, and I'll add just curtain 3, which is the one on the right, to create a 2 canvas option. Then when you go back to scenes, you'll see all the different options that'll take advantage of the 2 spliced together. And at least for me, the goldfish ended up being my favorite one of these expanded animations. Another place to definitely check out is ShareSpace. This is where people have created their own effects and uploaded it so you can try them out. I'm going to switch back to individual canvases because there's currently a lot more options on ShareSpace, but once you find one you like and star it, they'll then show up in your DIY tab under default. And this rocket one was by far the favorite one I found. So Govee, if you're watching, this animation is absolutely incredible, and it'd be great if you could make more that look this smooth. Another one that looked almost as cool as the rockets were these snakes. The movement's super fluid, so again, another one that I'd recommend saving in ShareSpace. And one last one I really enjoyed was Daffy Duck. Moving on, you'll definitely want to play around with uploading your own GIFs. To do this, go to DIY and click the plus button. Then tap on where it says lollipop and change it to GIF. Clear out the one that's currently there and click plus to add yours. And I've already downloaded a bunch that I found online, so you can find the one you want and upload it, and then it plays on the curtains. And when you save it, it'll then show up on your DIY favorites. And finally, no surprise here, but Govee's Scenic DreamView is still hands down the best thing they have going for them. I'm adding all 3 of the curtains, their pro lights, and then 5 of their new up-down wall lights that I have on my house. Then with one tap, you can choose from any of their scenes, and every single light plus the curtains will switch to match that theme. And if you've seen many of my videos, you know I love this feature, and considering you can currently add up to 20 devices, I still have room for more. Now this is usually the time when people start installing these lights on their house for the holidays, so I'll leave links to everything in the description. Plus, if you're curious on how to install the permanent outdoor lights on your house like a pro using a track system, I did a full-length video on that if you're interested, and I'll also leave links to the tracks I use from PermTrack. So that about does it for this one. Let me know if you have any questions about the curtain lights and I'll try to respond. But thank you all for watching, and as always, I hope you have a blessed day.